Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting of the Gilroy Unified School District Board of Education. We're ready to begin, and this evening, I believe the Pledge of Allegiance is being done by Mount Madonna. Okay. We have our Mount Madonna principal, Diane Padilla, and it looks like she brought a student along.
Yes, I'd like to introduce one of our students, Andrew Contreras. This is Andrew. He is a senior, a graduating senior at Mount Madonna, so we are very proud that he will be joining the class of 2018. And after graduation, he will be going to college. He is trying to decide what field he's going to pursue, and we're really hoping he's going to go with the idea of teaching. He is very inspired to be a science teacher, so we're really pushing for that. And I hope that you will help encourage him as well. Absolutely. This is Andrew Contreras.
I pledge allegiance. Oh, wait.
Step that way. There you go. Perfect.
All right, stand up, please. Put your right hand over your heart and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please sit. Thank you.
You should become a science teacher.
He looks like a science teacher too.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Okay.
¿Hay alguien aquí que necesite intérprete para la junta? No. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. The next portion of our meeting is general public comment. Do we have any this evening? Then I'm not going to read this big paragraph. Okay. So it is my responsibility to report to you the action taken in closed session. On a motion made by Trustee Linda Pisano and seconded by Trustee Jaime Rosso, the board unanimously approved a settlement agreement in OAH case number 2017-05-1365, and it passed unanimously. Okay, this evening we're very happy to see Sloan Pace back from Gilroy High School. She was our student board member representative last year. In fact, she went to the state convention with us, which was great. We seldom have a student go with us, but that was really good. I think it was good for you to see. And anyway, she's back, so we're thrilled to have you back, Sloan.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Flores, trustees. My name is Sloan Pace, and I am the school board representative from Gilroy High School. I am now a senior, which is very exciting. And tonight I will be doing my report on Brownell Middle School and Gilroy High School. So now a month into the school year, Brownell has just started getting settled into everything. They have started up 4 clubs that they have each year. They have their after-school yearbook, their chapter of the California Junior Scholarship Federation. They have a gaming club and their ASB. And this year they're trying something new. Mr. Laborante has been gathering supplies and he is creating a maker lab. So after school, students will have the opportunity to go to this lab and use whatever materials are there to just create. And they'll have a challenge and they'll try and come up with something to meet that. They will be opening that soon, and next year they hope to incorporate that into each science class, so that's part of the curriculum. And here you have a picture of students working at Applebee's. They had an athletic fundraiser there, so they had a pancake breakfast, and these are students who are helping out with that. Each year, Brownell does quarterly recognitions, but this year they have also started doing weekly and monthly. So during the week, if a student is excelling in the classroom or is seeing being a good citizen on campus, they can get a raffle ticket, and then these raffle tickets are put into a drawing, and each Friday students win little prizes. At the end of the month there's a drawing for a larger prize, and then each quarter they will do recognition for grades. And at Gilroy High School, the year has just started, so not too much has happened, but we had some things going on over the summer. We had our summer graduation ceremony where we had students who wanted to finish and get their diploma were able to graduate. We had many Mustangs working at the Garlic Festival. If you were there, you probably had some help from some Mustangs in Gourmet Alley. We had 4 Gilroy High School students go on the Taco Machi exchange program, pictured here in the bottom corner. And we also had our Gilroy High School Chamber Choir travel to Costa Rica. As school started, we have all of our seniors coming out in their senior crowns, which we make. A lot of fun. We have our link crew leaders shown here in the blue shirts, and they put on a freshman orientation to help students get used to school and ask questions about what it's like to be a high schooler. So those are some things we had. And we also had a back-to-school rally. So it was the first time freshmen were able to see what a rally was like and have the whole school together out on the track. And last week was homecoming. We had it really early this year. Normally it's in late October, so things have been very stressful, but now it's over, so I'm able to relax a little bit. Our theme was Welcome to the Fabulous Gilroy High School, so it was a take on Las Vegas. We had 4 spirit days that were each based on a different hotel. So we had Mandalay Bay, which was a beach-themed day. We had Hard Rock Cafe Day, so students came out in a band shirt or dressed as their favorite genre of music. Planet Hollywood Day, so students were able to dress up as their favorite movie character. And then we had Treasure Island Day, so we had pirates and mermaids on campus. And then on Friday, we always have Blue and White Day for our rally. That Friday, we also had our parade after school, which went really smoothly. We saw some board members out there supporting us, and it was a lot of fun to see the community members come out, and some people have a tradition of watching the parade, which is really amazing to watch. In the parade, each class has a float. So pictured are 2 floats. We have the freshman class and the senior class. Each float was based off of a hotel in Las Vegas as well. The freshmen chose Treasure Island. The sophomores had the Venetian. The juniors had Paris, and the seniors had New York, New York. I'm very happy to say the seniors won the float competition. And then to conclude homecoming week, we had our football game on Friday night where both the JV and varsity teams won. Very exciting. And on Saturday, we had our homecoming dance where we sold over 300 tickets, which is the most we've had in years. And that's all I have for Gilroy High School. Coming up, we have a blood drive, some things to help seniors get ready for college, and things like that, which I'll be presenting on at my next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Sloan. Good report. Next, we'll move to the superintendent's report. She gets to follow Sloan. Isn't that fun?
Every board meeting, I get to follow these amazing students. Mine are not as entertaining, but anyway, since our last board meeting, I visited 4 sites. As you know, in the fall, I visit all 15 school sites, and some of you joined me. Antonio Del Bono, oddly enough, no board member came. That's very unusual. But the principal, Velia, and I walked through every classroom, and I was very excited. As I'll say this once, so I'm not saying it about all 4 of the elementary schools I visited. What was really great is that all of the elementary schools, all the classrooms that we went into, were seeing the new adopted curriculum. So we're seeing the ELA benchmarks program, and we're starting to see the ELD materials that go along with it. So it's very exciting to see them everywhere. And I'm really impressed with the program, particularly from the standpoint of how much they integrate social studies into the ELA curriculum. So we're seeing a lot about the Constitution, the 3 branches of government everywhere. And that's integrated with SEAL. So because those are the standards that are supposed to be covered this time of the year, apparently. And so there's a lot of integration. And at all 4 sites, ADB, Elliott, and all 3 sites, Elliott, El Roble today, we saw these materials used throughout the school. And just to mention that Jaime and Linda joined me at the Elliott site visit. We were very impressed. There's quite a few new teachers, but some great new hires, and just SEAL was being implemented everywhere. It's actually beautiful. And then at El Roble today, Linda, James, and I saw the same thing. A lot of Go Math, a lot of the ELA curriculum. So it's really nice to see that kind of implementation occurring so early in the year. and generally almost all positive comments. We've heard a few criticisms, but mostly very positive. Last Friday, James and I visited the GATE program at Rucker, not the whole school. That site visit is coming up, but we visited the GATE program, and I'm really excited about what's happening in the GATE program at Rucker. We have 2 new teachers. One's a second-year teacher in our district, and the other's a new teacher to our district, but with a fair amount of experience. And then, of course, our veteran, Marlene Manzo, who's taken the lead with the 3 of them, and they're going to take the Rucker GATE program to a whole new level. I'm very excited about what they're planning and what they're doing, and the coordination between the 3 of them is just really remarkable. So very excited about that. I attended a lot of meetings this month, as always. You know, I go from a few meetings a day in the summer to 7 in a day sometimes, so it's 0 to 60 overnight. But anyway, we all, several of us, James, Jaime, and BC, and I attended the Chamber of Commerce presentation about Alexander Station, which you're going to hear about shortly. We were really impressed with the facts that were presented, which dispelled a lot of myths and rumors, so we thought it would be beneficial for you all to hear, and the public to hear the presentation, so we're going to have that shortly. The entire board joined us on our facilities walkthrough this month because there's just so much happening at Gilroy High. There's no way to cover it all at a board meeting. So I was really thrilled that the entire board came with us on the walkthrough, and there's just so much work going on at Gilroy High. The entire parking lot has been replaced. We're putting solar panels, which will be up and running October 14th, I heard today. We've started the 2-story math building project. The acoustics in the student center are almost done. Just tons of work being done at Gilroy High, and we're really excited about it, particularly about the new 2-story math building because of all the new students that are going to be showing up at Gilroy High over the next 4 or 5 years because of the developments in Alexander Station. So we need that space. Had the first SPAC meeting of the year, which is always kind of a introductory meeting on my part where I, like I do with new staff, share a lot of information about the district. Had some good questions. James and Heather, as you know, are your representatives on SPAC, and it seems like a very engaging group again. They have lots of good things to share. Linda and I met with the mayor and city administrator for our monthly meeting on September 12th, and we discussed a lot of topics that are of mutual interest, all of which are on our joint agenda next Monday night. And I've sent that to you. It's now posted. So next Monday night at 6 p.m. in this room, we'll be having our joint meeting with the city council and with the school board. We had a district office staff meeting that Alvaro took the lead on that meeting on Tuesday, again sharing this PowerPoint presentation that I have about the district. That hopefully is informative. I believe there was some positive feedback about that afterwards. And then yesterday, we had our first CalSOAP Governing Board of the Year and had some really interesting statistics to review, as we always do when we have these meetings. We had a special meeting, 2 meetings actually, where district office staff were invited to hear about the roof replacement, which is way overdue. We have multiple areas that leak badly in this building and has caused some real damage to the building. So we're finally going to replace the roof. And of course, that involves a 2 to 3 week period where we might have some discomfort, we might have some noise, but it'll be well worth it in the end. We need to get this roof replaced. There were some special events this month that I attended, again, with some board members. So the Gilroy Police Department and Fire Department had a 9/11 memorial, and I believe three board members, James, Linda, and BC, is that correct, attended? No, just BC, just James and Linda attended the memorial. It was very moving, and I'm really glad I attended, and I plan to attend in future years. I didn't know they did it till we got this special invitation, and it was a very nice ceremony, and you know, it was occurring all over the country at the same time. We had a number of us attended, James, Pat, Mark, and I, the Santa Clara County Office of Ed Teacher Recognition Celebration last Thursday evening, and we were really proud to be there as Kathy Silva was recognized as Gilroy's Teacher of the Year, along with 31 other teachers from other school districts. Kathy, as many of you know, longtime math teacher extraordinaire at Gilroy High, math department chair, coach of the cross-country team and the track. And just did an incredible job. She retired in June, but she was nominated to represent our district, and we were really proud that she was. And as mentioned already by Sloan, we had the Gilroy High homecoming parade on Friday, and Alvaro got to attend it for the first time. And Alvaro and I rode with the principal who drives that golf cart very fast. I actually got motion sickness from it. But anyway, it was a great parade, really enjoyed it. And we have a lot of back-to-school nights coming up, and those are going to appear on the screen shortly. Are the dates going to show up, Laura? Otherwise, I'd have to list them. You've seen them. Okay. Good. So we have a bunch coming up and a bunch of other events coming up that we can just send you these slides so that you can attend as many as you can. And that concludes my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Debbie. That was great. I believe Heather was also at the recognition at the county.
Oh, sorry, Heather.
Heather and
As you know, I barely got there thanks to traffic, so I was running into the building, so.
I was also there to also recognize some of our county recipient as well. So
Oh, good.
Really excited to see
I
both
bet.
teachers there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was very
Great.
nicely done.
Thanks for attending.
It was beautiful.
It was
Very
a
well
very
done.
nice event.
Okay, so we are on item 7, and this is the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion.
Move approval?
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
And passes unanimously. And now we will vote on the consent agenda, which does include some really important field trips. So, of note that the Gilroy High School Chamber Singers once again are going to Carnegie Hall. I mean, what a
That's
thrill.
great.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, I'll entertain a motion then to approve this, or did we just do that? We just did that, okay. We're done with that. Okay, we're moving on to item 8, which is action information items, and our Assistant Superintendent, Alvaro Meza, will talk about the update on the Alexander Station Apartments.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, Board. Good evening, members of the public. We have a guest here, Amanda Sanders, from the development of Alexander Station, located on 10th Street in Alexander, of course, here in Gilroy. She's bringing the facts of the development to you tonight, and we thought it was important to hear directly from the developer, as there's a lot of myths in town that we wanted to dispel. Obviously, the development will be served by the following schools, given the current boundaries. Las Animas Elementary would be the boundary there that would serve this development, Solorzano Middle School, as well as Gilroy High School. So this is an opportunity for us to hear directly from the developer about this development. In your packet and in the presentation at the tail end, it has another development that we won't be talking about here tonight. We'll focus it only on Alexander Station, but that is information in your packet because it's the same builder, same information, same application process, et cetera, et cetera. So without further ado, Amanda, if you please come up, and looking forward to the presentation.
Hello, everybody. My name's Amanda Sanders. I'm actually the district manager for the management company who will be filling and managing and maintaining the operations for Alexander Station. I do work closely with the owner and developer, which is the Pacific Companies, so their information is included in the presentation as well. Unfortunately, for such a short thing, someone from them wasn't able to come, but I can answer most questions and give you an overview of the project. These are the topics that we'll be covering, and I'm going to go a little bit quickly because there's a fair amount of information here. Basically, the Pacific Companies is the developer and the owner. They've developed and built and owned over 160 affordable properties through the western United States. Over 90 of those are in California. In my portfolio alone, I have 4 with them currently, and 4 more are coming by the end of the year. So they are definitely a growing company, and one is very invested in creating affordable housing. That's all they do. So they like to create communities that are attractive, energy conscious, and centrally located so that they're easy to get to all of the infrastructure that's involved in the cities where they build. They do bring a lot of business into town with their construction by employing local subcontractors and also using hotels, restaurants, and suppliers that are in the area. Alexander Station will be operating under the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program, also called Section 42, or Tax Credit Program Housing. It's administered by the IRS, not by HUD, and also by the state allocating agency, which is the California Tax Credit Allocation Committee. The LIHTC program was created to promote investment of private equity in the development of affordable rental housing for low-income housing. For doing that, the corporations that build it get a tax break, basically. In order to qualify for the tax credits, the projects do need to meet a number of requirements, and they are subject to rent restrictions and must remain affordable for a minimum of 30 years. In California, that's actually usually 55 years now. So those projects are going to be affordable housing for a long time. They're not going to be changing into condos. They're not going to be changing into market rate and have the rents go through the roof. They have to stay that way for a long time. And we are also subject to many inspections. Everybody who's invested in these wants to come and make sure that we're running quality, affordable housing that's safe and habitable for the people who live there. The files are audited frequently to make sure that the housing is occupied by the people that it's intended for, low-income households. We do inspect frequently to make sure that there aren't extra people living in the homes, and that they get recertified annually to make sure that they're not going over income. And of course, we want to create a healthy environment and a community where people can live and learn. These are the affordability layers that are going to be in place at Alexander Station. The maximum income of the applicants is 50% and 60% of the area median income. So the maximum amount of gross income that a household can make is according to the chart there. The AMI is adjusted annually. That usually comes from HUD annually, somewhere around January. It gets funneled down through the tax credit committee for California, usually somewhere around March or April. And then we roll out any rent changes or income changes, usually somewhere around June of each year. About 10% of the apartment homes at Alexander Station will be available at the 50% income levels. The rest will be at the 60% income levels. And we use the Santa Clara County AMI just in case anybody wants to look that up at some point. These are the rent amounts that will be charged at Alexander Station. As you can see, it's not extremely low income housing. It is more for your working class people, where maybe you have 1 or 2 people in the household are working, but maybe they're making minimum wage, or you have one earner, but they're not working in Silicon Valley and making bank. So the rents are here. The minimum income, according to the chart you saw before, is about 2.5 times the monthly rent to make sure that people can afford to pay for the apartment that they'll be living in. The rent will be adjusted 1 or 2 times per year based on when the annual change in incomes comes out and if there's a utility allowance change for the county or the area. The fair market rent is that last column. That's set each year by the Housing Authority, or HUD. That reflects the market rent in the area for the apartments by size and sets the maximum rent that the Housing Authority will pay for people who have housing choice vouchers or Section 8 vouchers. So that's kind of what we're comparing our rent to, and you can see we're well below that, so people are paying a more affordable rent. We do accept housing choice vouchers and Section 8 vouchers at Alexander Station, but we do not provide them. It's not a project-based Section 8 community, so people do have to come with their own assigned vouchers. This is our leasing process. We're in the accepting pre-applications phase where we are checking for initial income qualifications for the households that are applying. The next phase will be beginning in October. That's when we'll start running credit and criminal background checks on the people who have applied, screening them based on those. It also includes identity verification. People do not have to be citizens in order to be residents of Alexander Station. They do need to provide a government-issued ID, not necessarily a U.S. government-issued ID. If they have a social security number, we'll run it. If they have an ITIN, we'll run it. If they don't have one, that's fine. We can still run it. And then phase 3 is verifying the income of all of the households, and that'll begin around October, November. It's whatever is 120 days out from where we expect to have occupancy of the units. Currently, we expect that to be in January of 2018. Alexander Station breakdown. We have 2 buildings that are connected by sky bridges that go in between them. There's 5 stories, 3 elevators, 5 stairways, 2 main entrances for guests that have call boxes. Those are at the front and the back of the building. There's 1 commercial rental space that's actually kind of on the right there. There are 262 apartments. The breakdown, 18 one-bedrooms, 110 two-bedrooms, 100 three-bedrooms, and 32 four-bedrooms. On-site employees will have 2, 1 in each building, 1 from the office staff and 1 from the maintenance staff for people who are available for emergencies after hours. Our staffing includes full-time manager and assistant manager, full-time maintenance supervisor and maintenance tech, and a part-time leasing associate and porter, janitor sort of person. If we end up needing those full-time, then we'll increase those as needed. Exterior features. We have a lot of amenities going into this property. It's going to be gorgeous. It does have controlled access and security features in place, including cameras. There are a lot of areas like the swimming pool, playgrounds, a field, a full-size basketball court, barbecue and picnic areas, and game tables, and art throughout the property. These are examples from other communities that the Pacific Company built, so you kind of know what you're looking at. Interior features, there's going to be a lot of different community rooms available for tenants. Fitness center, bike storage, computers, recreation room that you can reserve for parties and things, media, laundry, games, library room, and homework room, among other things. And just a quick blurb about Harvest Park. It's coming at the very northern end of Gilroy, also beginning in January. That one's 98 units in 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. So there will be some people coming there too. Same affordability, same leasing cycle as Alexander Station. This is where Harvest Park is. It's a split site up by Cohansey and Monterey and Farrell. Over by the Antonio del Buono Elementary School. It's right down the street from the back part of the property. And we do not have any preferences in place for, what did I do? There we go. The question we get a lot is, are we bringing in homeless people from San Francisco? Are we bringing in prisoners from Oakland? Do we have a preference for people from San Jose? All of those are no. We have no preferences for housing in Alexander Station. Applicants are processed in the order that they joined the interest list that's been running for more than a year now. Basically, as we continue to get applications, people are added onto that list, and they'll be processed in that order. No specific things that we're looking for other than you have to pass the background checks that I mentioned earlier and prove your income.
Amanda, I thought a great question from the audience was how many of the applicants are from Oakland?
Right now, 0.
That's what I wanted wanted everybody to hear.
Yeah,
And
0.
you also said that the majority of the applicants are from Gilroy and the
Yes.
surrounding communities.
The vast majority of the applications we have so far, probably running about 80% right now, are from Gilroy or the immediately surrounding areas. So you're going to see most of the people and the children who are going to be moving in there coming from existing schools in the area. They may not be the same schools, but most of the people on our interest list right now and who are processing applications are from Gilroy already. I'm not saying that that's going to be the case by the end of things, but we do expect most of the housing to go to people who are local to Gilroy. I keep hitting that button. How are applicants qualified for tenancy? They undergo a third-party screening of the credit and criminal background. Credit score below the acceptable limit results in a denial, as do particular criminal results. Not all criminal results result in a denial, but the ones that are violent, the ones that involve property damage, the ones that involve burglary, those sort of things will result in a denial. We want them to be good neighbors. And are we busing in applicants from anywhere? No, we are not. Most applicants, as I said, have come through Gilroy and through a lot of the city referring people over to us and other agencies in the area referring people to us. And that's where Alexander Station is. We're under construction. You can see it. It's gigantic. And the leasing office is down at 555 Mayock Road, which is just about half a mile down, either off of Luchesa or the Auto Mall Parkway. It's open Monday through Friday from 9 to 5, and there's a phone number there, and the website address in case you're interested or know someone who might be. A lot of teachers would actually probably qualify for the housing here, especially those that are early on in their careers, just because it is a more moderate income affordable housing complex. And maybe they know students who might be looking for more affordable housing too. And yes, there is information online as well. The website is alexanderstation.pwapt.com, and Harvest Park is harvestpark@pwapt.com. There's contact forms on the websites as well. We do respond to everything. That's all I have, although if you have any questions, I'm happy to entertain them.
Trustee Bass.
I did have one question, just because I'm not familiar with the process, but you said you review the income levels yearly. In the event that an individual exceeded the income level, they would be removed from the property? Is that what I'm understanding?
No, the state of California doesn't actually allow us to do that. It has some tax ramifications for the property, and as long as someone doesn't go over 140% of the income level, basically they're fine. Once they go over 140%, it does have some tax issues with the ownership, but we still can't make them go just for being over income. That's not considered good cause in the state of California. So we might encourage them to look elsewhere, but they don't just get booted out on the street if their income climbs too much.
Other questions from board members? Trustee Good?
Do you anticipate having any on-site security?
We don't know yet, is the best answer. There will be secured doors that use a fob system for getting into and out of the buildings. There will be call boxes for guests coming in. There will be security cameras throughout the building. We will see how things go, is about how the security is. If we notice that there's any issues with that, we will hire security and have them on site. Right now, we don't necessarily anticipate having that need, but if it does arise, then we will. We'll probably know pretty quickly, honestly, whether that's going to be an issue.
And you talked about that you've been involved, and they've been involved with a lot of the California projects, and it sounded
Yes.
like at most of them, security wasn't necessary.
No, I mean, even our property in the Iron Triangle in Richmond doesn't have security. They have a monitored camera system, and the monitored camera system calls the police if they're needed. It also has speakers where they can talk to the people that they see doing things and say, hey, I'm calling the police, get out of here. And that actually works pretty well there. And having site staff who live on site and monitor things, it does help a lot as well. Having a very active management company who takes action as we find things out, having a good relationship with the police department, finding out if anybody on site committed any crimes either on site or off site, we will take action based on that.
So the cameras are going to be monitored by humans that are off-site?
This property, I'm not sure about that yet, whether these ones will be monitored. But our Iron Triangle property, they are monitored there, and that we found to be more effective than having on-the-ground security. Just because on-the-ground security make friends with people that live there, whereas remote people through the internet, not so friendly.
I could anticipate having the police chase someone there, and a resident punching through the thing, and then the police being locked out and having no one to contact.
Oh, no, the police are going to have lots of ability to get into the building.
Okay.
The police chief has already asked for, once we have a little bit more of the structure done, a tour for all of the officers who will be serving that area, where we can show them where all the entrances are, how to get to every part of the building, how they'll be getting in and out. The police department, fire department, paramedics usually have a special access code that will get them in pretty much anywhere. And that does not get shared outside of those agencies.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Trustee Rosso?
You mentioned up to how many people you're anticipating that the complex will have?
My current estimate is somewhere between 800 and 1,000 people total.
And school-age kids?
We don't know yet. I have already talked to the school board, school representatives here. As soon as we start qualifying people through the credit and criminal background process and know who the actual households will be moving in, we'll start providing demographic information for student-age children to the schools on at least a monthly level, probably more frequently, so that they'll know about how many kids that they're going to have in each age bracket.
And would you comment about parking and arrangements for, what you anticipate there?
Parking did go through a parking study to determine how many cars we expect on the property and was worked out with the city of Gilroy. Currently, the expected parking for the property is 1.7 parking spaces per unit. Because the property is on the bus lines, it's half a mile from train station, and we have plenty of bike parking available in secured rooms on the ground floor. We didn't feel that there would be a huge amount of demand for the parking for this property, but we are planning on having very strict parking monitoring in place at the property. People will have to apply for and receive permits, which requires that cars be registered and insured, and then we'll contract with a tow company to have the parking lots patrolled and cars that don't belong there removed.
And maybe you should tell them where it is, because I was surprised. I was trying to imagine, where are 500 to 600 cars going to be parked? Can you tell them where that is?
Basically at the side of the property on the left side, along the railroad tracks. That's going to be about, I think, 2 or 3 rows of parking, plus on the ground level there's tuck-under parking, and there's parking between the 2 buildings as well. And then at the back of the property, the side that's toward industrial paper, international paper, there's more parking back there as well.
But it's all resident parking, there's no guest parking?
There will be very minimal guest parking at my expectation right now.
And there is no street parking, is that correct?
I am not involved with the city on those discussions. The development company is still continuing to discuss parking arrangements with the city and setting up the processes for that, which are not all complete. So once they have those completed, they'll let me know and we'll be responsible for enforcing them. But from what I understand, it's likely that there won't be a lot of street parking available on Alexander just because of the semi-truck traffic back to the International Paper Company behind us.
Trustee Faith? Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yes?
So it sounds like you have a very healthy interest list in this project. But,
Yes.
the district has a lot of employees besides teachers who we're all facing a big affordability problem here in the area. Is there any way that you could partner with the district to, maybe give our employees an opportunity to know about projects early so that they could get in line?
Honestly, getting in line right now would be fine for them.
Yeah.
Because we do have this project and we do have the Harvest Park project both opening.
So
And
you
right
have one
now,
line for everything in the area?
Yep, pretty much.
Oh, okay.
We're using the same list right now for everything.
Okay.
And basically between these two developments, we'll have units coming available between January and April is when we expect the finishing of the second phases of all the projects.
Okay.
So we'll have quite a lot of units coming up, and if people contact the number now or visit the website, send us email, they can get on the list and be processed. Right now, pretty much the applications we're taking, I expect if they pass the credit and criminal, will be housed. Maybe not in January, but probably by April.
I'll put in a plug for district employees. They have roots in this community.
Send them to
and
us. We'll process them. Send them the contact information. We're happy to have local, government employees, school employees, anything else that works for the city and county. Send them over. A lot of those folks that are in the lower earning, wages do qualify for the affordable housing just because it is more working class housing. Yes.
Trustee Rogers?
I know you got a lot of how many applications have come in, and how many do you think would qualify?
Right now, we have actually only about 300 applications. We've given out 1,300 application forms, but a lot of people haven't brought them back yet. So if people don't bring them back, they're not going to get processed. So right now, we have enough to usually, I will say, based on my prior properties, about half the people pass the credit and criminal background. I have a feeling down here it might be a higher percentage, just because it's not as urban of an area as where some of my other properties are. So I would expect somewhere upwards of half will qualify, which is why I say we still have plenty of room, so send us more people.
So you just dispelled another big myth that you didn't do on Friday. Is there's this rumor floating around that there are thousands of applicants and there's no point to sign up.
Oh, no. We originally had about, I want to say 3,000 to 4,000 people on the interest list, but we've contacted all of them now. So we've sent out postcards, we've called everybody many times, and a lot of people just aren't responding. A lot of people from that initial interest list were also in the very low income bracket, more of what is the 30% bracket housing, where you have people who are maybe receiving disability only or SSI only, not SSA. But people whose incomes are more like $700 a month, which obviously isn't enough to pay for the rent here unless you have some sort of a subsidy that you're coming with. So a lot of those people from the initial list actually don't qualify because they're under income.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Any other questions, board members?
And on Monday evening, this is on our joint agenda also, so I'm sure we'll have a different discussion with the city.
Okay,
Well,
thank you.
We really appreciate you coming and talking to us.
Especially with such short notice. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm happy to dispel rumors because we hear them in the office constantly. And we'd very much like to get the real information out there and settle some people's minds. This is a really great project. I mean, it's gorgeous, the features and things going into it. And we do take very much pride in maintaining a beautiful, habitable, safe environment for the people who live there. That is something that is very important to us as a management company and extremely important to the owners and developers. And from what I understand, they're maybe even looking at another property for Gilroy down the road. So they plan on having a lasting relationship with the people here.
One last question.
Yes, okay, Trustee Russell.
So your, again, your anticipated opening?
January.
In January?
January 2018. I expect to have the smaller portion of Harvest Park, which is about 30 units, and the front building for Alexander Station in January. That one's about 144 units. So a little bit less than 200 units in January. The second part of Alexander Station will probably follow in February or March, which is the other 180 units. And then part 2 of Harvest Park will probably have around April. And that's another 60-some units.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next part of our agenda, 8B, the South County Youth Task Force CalGRIP. And who's presenting this?
Well, I'm gonna start the presentation, and then Bernice Aguilera is here to talk to you some about the South County Youth Task Force. But I've been involved since the task force was formed, and as you know, we have a board member rep on the task force. Originally, it was Jaime, and more recently, was anybody in between Jaime and Linda? I don't think so. So anyway, we've had 2 board members on the South County Youth Task Force. What's great about the task force is this was totally a volunteer effort from the get-go, but all the major decision makers in Gilroy and Morgan Hill have been at the table. So we've had the mayors, school board members, the superintendents, police chiefs, and then a lot of other agencies and community-based organizations.
Supervisor.
The Board of Supervisor currently, Mr. Wasserman, who's just been amazing, and recently came through with a lot of money to keep the task force running. So it's been a really, in all the years I've been the superintendent, I haven't been on a task force with this kind of leverage because all the decision makers are there. And we started way back when, creating a strategic plan, and of course that was before Bernice, but now she's taken it to another whole level. And it's been funded through grant funding primarily, and 6 of the agencies have contributed financially since early on, including Gilroy Unified. But we're at a crossroad because our major grant is coming to a close in December, and that's why I wanted to bring this to you now. I didn't want to wait too long to start talking to you about it. We've been contributing $15,000 a year for a while, and we're all the agency, I should say all, we think most of the agencies, by the way, are going to continue participating. As of yesterday, Bernice had a really good meeting with a couple of the partners. So we're feeling really good about this work continuing, but in order for it to continue, we need all of us to add some more funds to the pot. And I'm really pleased to say that our city police department has really stepped up and recommended to the city council to fund the Bernice's position, which is a big contribution. We're really pleased. And Supervisor Wasserman went to the County Board of Supervisors, and they're going to be contributing $250,000 to the project. So what we're asking, we, the task force, are asking, and why we're coming tonight, is to have the other agencies that have been contributing to increase their contribution over the next few years. But I wanted Bernice to talk a little bit about the task force itself and all the good things that have been happening as a result of this incredible partnership.
Thank you. Superintendent Dr. Flores and Madam Board President Midgard and Board of Trustees, I really just want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here today. First of all, to thank you for supporting South County Youth Task Force since 2012, and to really, listen to our humble request to keep it going. Some of the logos are there that you can see, and the different agencies that have participated over the course of the years. We really started back in 2011 when we had a lot of gang issues in Gilroy. I'm not sure if you can remember, but it does not look anything like it does today. We did have a couple murders here in Gilroy. We had one in Morgan Hill, unfortunately, a 14-year-old girl, and that's when we decided to come together and band together to really protect our community. We had Operation Royal Flush and Garlic Press, where more than 55 South County residents were indicted for being Nuestra Familia gang representatives, and either in trafficking drugs or other hard, violent offenses. We really recognized together that gangs are fluid. It started as a gang problem. We've really evolved as a violence prevention body. Also intervention, and we work with PD for that suppression portion of it. What we have created is a partnership that works with different systems. So PDs working with school districts, working with CBOs, our community-based partners, our county partners, and together we have brought in 3 CalGrip grants. Those 3 CalGrip grants have totaled $2,250,000. Altogether, it's a $5 million project that we have regionally been navigating for the past couple years. Those are the members that are participating: City of Gilroy, Morgan Hill and Gilroy Unified School District, the County of Santa Clara through Board of Supervisors, also probation. Now we have District Attorney's Office. We have behavioral health at the table. Each of those entities are leveraging resources. Thanks to South County Youth Task Force, we had our original educational probation officer that was housed in Gilroy, and now we have 2. That's a direct MOU between probation and the school district. Gilroy Youth Task Force was also the originating entity that started the conversation. It was not pooling enough of the resources because it was not a regional effort, which is why South County Task Force evolved. Some of our partners, we won't get into names and we won't get into who's all there, but it's just a testament that we used to work in silos. PDs used to work with PDs, schools would work with schools, community-based organizations would come into schools, but we didn't have a conversation. We didn't know what we were measuring. We weren't sure what data we were collecting. So some of our partners there, as you can see, are everything from Community Solutions and Youth Alliance to National Compadres Network that provides us training in evidence-based programming, evidence-based practices that really work when it comes to at-risk youth, at-risk families. We also call them high-need, high-risk families. A couple of numbers that I have provided for you really just show that in the past 2.5 years, we have served over 8,000 youth. That's 8,000 youth in South County, Gilroy, and Morgan Hill, and have worked over 36,000 hours in various programs that have been funded by CalGrip and matching dollars by our regional entities. Everything from case management, which is a very direct relationship with the youth and the family, with somebody who has the training to really see what kind of services, what kind of needs a family has, that oftentimes those youth are either not at school or have problems in school and engagement, to crisis response and mediations. Sometimes youth don't go to school. We have people that kind of survey the area, find out why they're not going to school, find out what's going on at home. A lot of these youth are affected by parents who are incarcerated, who are newly released, who have drug issues, and so they need some help. So that's where really South County Youth Task Force works, to make sure we know what community agency, what resource is needed and what is there so we don't reinvent the wheel, but we really use our dollars collaboratively to make sure that we're enhancing the services and we're not duplicating. This is another picture over 3.5 years, serving over 7,000 youth in very intensive services. So the services that are provided through the South County Task Force and grants fit really nicely in the tiered approaches of the school. You know, we're talking about PBIS. We're talking about the same restorative structure that the schools really need to have to make sure that they're positive school climates, that they're being successful. So what we have tried to do is funnel resources at the different schools, predominantly focusing on East Gilroy and Southeast Gilroy to start, because those were the areas that we had higher expulsions, we had higher truancy issues. One of the innovative programs that began through CalGRIP back in 2013 is restorative justice. And restorative justice is basically practices that support current systems in place. It's not a program, it's nothing new that we have to do. It really fits in nicely within OVEAS and PBIS. They're practical tools that have been proven to build relationships between youth and between instructors, between schools, so that violent incidences recur less. And those are some of the schools that have been taking advantage of some of the training that we have provided. What I don't want to take too much of your time today, but as Superintendent Dr. Flores mentioned, CalGRIP, which ends in December of 2017, is no longer a grant. Governor Brown did not put it back in his budget. So what we're trying to do is sustain some of the movement that we have created. We do not want to go back to 2012 to remember how gangs were really taking over our community. Now, as I said, we're really looking at violence prevention. How do we really support our youth so that they have what they need to be successful in school? South County Task Force focuses on youth who are in school, in the community, and in their homes. We need to make sure that we have different services at play at each of the areas. We're really looking at family support. How can we really engage our families to be proactive and be participating in our schools and in their children's education? Luckily for us, there is a new grant called CalVIP, and it's a violence prevention grant. So currently, even though funding is going away, we so believe in what we're doing that we're creating a new 3-year strategic plan, acknowledging and knowing that together we are stronger as a regional approach and that we will be successful in applying and receiving future funding.
So why we're here this evening is to talk to you about the additional contribution we're requesting from Gilroy Unified. So for the first 2 years, we've been contributing 4 years. The first 2 years it was $14,000, the last 2 years $15,000. So what we're requesting is that for the current school year, that the amount be $21,109 instead of $15,000. And then for the next year, and that's an increase of a little over $6,000. And for year 2 and 3, we're requesting $45,678, which would be almost $31,000 increase for those 2 years. We think this is money that's very well spent. We've seen so many indicators of what this work has done in our schools. You know, it's very difficult to, as you know, to sort out the data so you can say, well, it's South County Youth Task Force. But all of our efforts, PBIS, OVEAS, restorative justice, all the interventions and prevention methods that have been put in place thanks to this partnership, we believe have contributed to some really good numbers. You know, fewer truants, chronic truants, fewer expulsions, and on the gang front, almost no activity in our schools. And the first few years I was here, that was a huge issue. It's because we're so focused on it, and I think that's what we really needed to do, was say we have a problem, and we need to do something about it, and we formed this collaborative, and we rarely hear, I would get calls those first few years about an expulsion. And one of the first things the principals told me, well, they're from this family that's been involved in gangs for generations. I never hear that now, literally. We have so few problems associated with gang membership in our schools, and I really credit this effort, which is a lot of work, by the way. There are times when, you know, you're sitting at a meeting, and it's really difficult to be talking with so many different agencies about what we need to do, but we've had this commitment now for 5 years, and it's really working. So to me, an additional $6,000 this year and $30,000 the next 2 years is well worth it, and we would like to see it as a budget priority.
Questions? Yes, Trustee Good?
What's the annual budget for the task force and how's it allocated?
Well, we spent $2.5 million over how many years?
Over 5 years.
And there's no cost for the task force. We're all doing this as part of our jobs or volunteers. All of that goes to services. So the amount that we receive through the grant, that's all for restorative justice, intervention programs, activities for students to keep them off the streets. I mean, it's all gone to direct services except for Bernice's salary, and the police department has already recommended to the city council that be funded by the city. She's the paid staff person.
Yeah, it all sounds good, but to be more comfortable, rather than it all goes in services and it's in the ether, I'd like to see something, an actual budget and where the money is went.
We have
Yeah.
multiple years of budgets.
I'm sure you do. I'd just
that we
like to
can
see it
show you.
before I
Sure.
throw my support behind
Sure.
it.
We'd be happy to show you the current year and the past 4 years budgets, and I think you'll be really pleased to see. I mean, you know, you have projects like this where so much of it's overhead cost, you know, facilities, and the cost of administration, clerical, whatever. The only paid person in this project is Bernice. Everything else goes to services. So, and of course, some of those people are paid to do the services, but it's direct services to the youth and their families.
Correct, and if I may add, a lot of it out of the $500,000, for example, per the CalGRIP grant, other than a 50% of my salary, everything is going directly to youth through community-based organizations and recreation-based. So some of the programs will include evidence-based programs, support groups for schools, such as Y Tri, Joven Noble, Shinachli, character development programs, cultural sensitive programs, anti-gang or gang prevention programs, late-night gyms, which we have 3 late-night gyms, 2 in Gilroy, 1 in Morgan Hill. That's a place for youth to go. It's open from 6 to 9:30 p.m., so they're off the street. We also have direct case management and mental health resources. So Dr. Flores is correct. We have budgets that we could definitely send over so you can see. Currently, right now, we are in a transition period because grant funding is ending on December 31st. So, for example, Supervisor Wasserman gave $266,000 over the next year and a half to fund some of the evidence-based support groups that directly are going to benefit Gilroy Unified School District, mostly, and 2 schools in Morgan Hill. And also to fund the late night gym program, which is another evidence-based program for evening, which combines recreation and also some mental health professionals that are there so they can work around some of the issues that the youth are focusing on. Thank you.
Trustee Rosso?
Again, if you look at surrounding communities and you look to the south of us in Salinas or even to the north of us, and you see, the problems that they had, the gang-related issues that are largely out of control in many of these areas, I think Gilroy, it's amazing when you consider, you look at our schools and you look at our community, and I think it speaks for itself. And also the collaboration and the buy-in from not only law enforcement, the schools, the city, the county, and the public health sector is amazing. And so for the relatively small investment that we're putting in here, we're getting a big payoff for our schools. So I very, very strongly support this.
Okay, well, we have information tonight, and then we're going to get more budget information. We're not voting tonight.
Right.
we'll get more budget information and then probably have further discussion, but Trustee Pace.
Are the other partners listed? I guess they would get comparable increases, or
Correct.
if one of them decides not to play, then do we come up with a plan B, or?
So basically, the services will not be rendered if an organization does not decide to pony up some more money. Each agency is being asked to put more forth, so that is the intention, and we already have commitments. City of Morgan Hill already added it to their 2-year budget, their proportion to keep their programs going, or a portion of that. A stipulation by Supervisor Wasserman is, this money is to go to those programs to support them, but that entity needs to be responsible and also reciprocating that. So let's just say one of the 6 does not, or decides not to participate, then services will not be rendered to that part of our community.
No free lunch, that's good.
We're trying. We're scaling back. It was a $500,000 program or project with a dollar match-to-match component. Now that we're really scaling back until we get additional new funding, we really just have to be very intentful. I also would like to say that the programs that were under CalGRIP, we do have a third-party evaluation because we want to make sure that we're just not having programs, but that they actually work. And our evaluation from our project from 2014 and 15 demonstrated that over 70% of the recipients that participated in those projects were successful, either by getting closer relationships with their family, new goals, new way of life, less of drug use, alcohol use, higher grades. So we have metric systems, and this last 3 years, we're actually going to have our evaluation that is going to be completed in March. So that's going to detail our successes or lack of between 2015 to 2017 calendar years. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, again,
Thanks, Bernice.
this is informational. Bernice, we really appreciate you coming and presenting the information.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Item 8C is Career Technical Education Presentation. Oh. Excuse me, just a minute.
This is backwards, forward.
Oh, well, the presenter has.
Process is, and it states it on the agenda, that you submit the public comment request before the item. I don't know, and I'll leave it up to the board what your.
Comments are to the board, not to the Alexander Station lady.
I'm going to leave it up to the board. That's their decision.
We have 4 people that would like to speak to us, and I think we should go ahead and came to speak to us. That's great. You are limited to 3 minutes each. Okay? And the first person is Rochelle Castaneda.
My question is.
You got to go up to the mic.
Yeah.
The meeting is recorded, just so you know.
I have a question along with kind of a lengthy statement. So I guess I'll start with the statement and then ask the question. Right now, I'm a parent at Los Animas School. I'm also a TK parent at Elliott for the year. And at Los Animas, we have 769 students there. And at Elliott, I've noticed that it's like 535 students. It looks like it's almost the same floor plan as Los Animas, yet almost 200 and something less kids. Parking, picking up your kids, dropping off is fairly easy, and it happens to be right around the corner from Alexander Station. So I'm curious as to why the Alexander Station is being zoned for Los Animas and not for Elliott.
I can address it. We don't normally respond to the public, but it's a really good question, and it may be something you all want to hear. They're not identical floor plans. We built an additional wing at Los Animas that we don't have at Elliott. Elliott is almost at capacity. I just walked the campus with the principal. We have 1 empty classroom at Elliott. So there is no capacity to house additional students at Elliott. At Los Animas, we built that additional wing, and we have portables that are in addition to the main building. The main building, you're correct, is identical to Elliott. But in addition to that, at Los Animas, we have the two-story wing we built, and we have extra portables on that campus. Elliott's also a very small campus, the smallest in the district, a little over 4 acres, 4 or 5 acres, something like that, 6 acres. Of course, Los Animas is much bigger. So we don't have the capacity to house students at Elliott, and unfortunately, that assumption was made by other people, and we weren't consulted when this project was originally envisioned so that we could answer that question right up front. We knew we did not have capacity at Elliott for additional students.
So if I may, we're talking about parents in the 5th grade level that have pulled their kids out because we're at 37, 38, 39 kids per a teacher. And I'm walking by Elliott classes that are 20 kids. So to me, it's not really a classroom issue, it's a class size issue.
Well, normally we do not engage with the public. I broke my own rule by responding to your first question because I thought it would be helpful to them. But that's, if you want a separate meeting about the numbers, we'll be happy to talk to you.
I will, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And just so parents know, the protocol, when it's a public comment, we don't respond. As a board, we can't respond because it's not on the agenda. So if we have to schedule a future meeting, that would be great. But the next speaker is Danielle Smart.
You have to go to the mic. Thank you.
Since you don't answer questions, then I would love a private meeting.
Sure.
Thank you.
We'll be glad to do that.
And Catalina Rupert, if you could step to the mic. Thank you.
And I agree with my peer. Please, let's have a private meeting or a more informative meeting because as parents, like myself, I see the demand on that school. So we need to really talk about seriously resources because if you're allocating only 70 students from that apartment complex, I don't know how you got that number. So thank you.
Okay, and the next speaker is Maria Lomelli.
So my request would be the same. You know, I'm a parent at that school also, and I'm extremely concerned about the decisions that are being made and how this is going to affect my daughter's classroom sizes. I still have 2 more years to go, and I have a small child that's going to attend the school also. So I would like a meeting so that we can get more clarification on this issue.
Sure. We'll be happy to set up a meeting in the next couple weeks. Thank you for coming.
Okay, great. Okay, so we will return to the agenda and we will have the career technical education presentation.
Good evening. Oops. Good evening.
No other public comment, right?
Because they had last.
Just want to make sure.
Any minute now.
We have no other.
Okay.
Hi there. I want to thank Dr. Flores and President Midgard and the rest of the board for giving me this opportunity to talk about career technical education. As you know, I came on board a little over a year ago to work with career technical ed to get it to where it needs to be, and it's been a very enlightening process, needless to say, because simultaneously, a lot of changes have been happening in Sacramento, which are now coming here. There we go. I want to talk about where we are today and about the 11 elements of high-quality CTE program rubric, if you will, that we'll be using. And the college career indicator performance levels, and how do we stack up now, and what is that going to mean in the future?
And also I'll say a modest beginning at a dual enrollment program, which is very much a big part of that college and career indicator program. And then talk about some of the accomplishments we've been able to do and make, and then some goals for the future, but what challenges we'll also have during that time. Right now, we have about 40 CTE classes. There's 17 CTE pathways, or some that can be a little more structured to be a pathway, meaning there's going to be at least 2 classes of at least 300 hours over that period of time that culminates in some type of a test or exam that would mean that a person is certified. Well, that's one of those problems that we have too. To give you an idea of dual enrollments, which is very important in the future, we have none at this time. And that's enrollment with the community college or any college where our class qualifies for credit at the college and our class. So it's something that's highly desired. It's in the college career indicator system, and something we need to really move forward on. To give you an idea of where we are, I'll say now, and you'll see data throughout this as well as the 5-year plan that I hope everybody was able to access at some point, because it was a little difficult for me to access that, because once you build it, you find out that you can't pretend to be anybody else every time you get on it. So anyway, I've tried to get as much data as I can here and there, and from the time I started working on this till now, so a lot of it has changed as well. But in the 15-16 data, I believe I got this from the Perkins grant, 1,595 students were in CTE classes for that year. That's a lot because you have to have a 0.5 to graduate, and we've been doing that for some time. We have 139 that have completed concentration level, which would be like 2 classes, but not necessarily a capstone class. And 134 completed a capstone. And we really don't have too many that go to level 3. They're just a real distinct ending point. So it's a little variable. One of the things that I looked at that you can pull from the state of California is the 11 elements of a high-quality CTE program. I just have a piece of it up here. I didn't want to make the whole meeting about it. And it was just me taking it, and now I've gotten some feedback from teachers, and eventually I'll have it from a lot of people. But as you can see, this is actually a representation of a lot of those elements. Where minimally, or partially, we are where we need to be. Now, with the college and career indicator performance levels, it's just 3 levels: prepared, approaching prepared, or not prepared. And then they get a little convoluted. So I feel for counselors and principals everywhere, because it's not just, did you pass this and that, now you're in. There's more to it. In the prepared level, you need a high school diploma in any one of the following. And if you look at this, it now has career technical education pathway. Not a 0.5, but 20 at least. 2 classes that be called a pathway. And a smarter balanced summative assessment of at least 3 standard met on the mathematics, or 2 on the other one. And 1 semester, 2 quarters of a dual enrollment. The problem with dual enrollment is we don't have any. So that's already off the table at this point. And then another way is the high school diploma and at least a 3 standard met on both ELA and math, or a passing score on 2 advanced placement exams, or 2 international baccalaureate exams, which we don't participate in. Or completion of courses that meet the university's A through G criteria, plus either the pathway or smarter balanced summative of at least 3 and a 2 on the other one. Dual enrollment's not there. And passing score on 1 AP exam or 1, once again, baccalaureate that we don't participate in. approaching prepared is really important, and we'll see some numbers in a bit. You're not quite there in terms of academics. So high school diploma and a CTE pathway completion, or a score of at least 2 on both tests, completion of 1 semester, oh, that's right, that's not supposed to be there. Completion of courses that meet the UCAG criteria, and then not prepared is not meeting any of those or not getting a diploma. Now, the college career indicator performance level will not be fully vetted, if you will, or built until 2018. This here is based on, the figures here are based on the CASP. But what you see here is the 32% prepared by that regard. 20% approaching, 48% not prepared. Now the A through G will be added for what we'll see in the next week or so. And then the the career aspect is going to be added for 2018, the dual enrollment parts and the career technical ed. So accomplishments that we've made. We do have a draft 5-year GUSD CTE plan. Now, it's called a draft, not so much because it isn't near completion, but I made a lot of it up. I just want you to know that. But it was based on historical data, the plan that came before, what I have to follow and we have to follow for a plan going into the future, and the idea of dual enrollment and the ideas of other CTE and pathways. We have developed a strong partnership with Gavilan College CTE department. We have monthly meetings. They have to do CTE. They have grants they go by. They need dual enrollments. We have them. We need to do that. And also career pathway articulation and other shared programs. Here's one way that we were able to almost begin by scratch, if you will. Christopher High School has a welding shop. They have material, they have equipment, but not for 30-plus kids in every program. Gavilan Community College, they wanted to develop a welding program. They used to have one years ago, but they don't have a shop. They're building things where they might build one, but they don't have a shop. But they do have resources that could help us out in terms of Christopher High. And adult ed has to have CTE programs as well. Now, adult ed has some money, but not enough to make a whole shop or have a whole program that could cost a lot of money. So they bring in some resources. And then where we end up on this trail is Christopher Welding is able to find itself with a welding pathway and much more equipment. Gavilan is getting themselves into industry certification and dual enrollment, articulation, and then adult ed is able to develop a CTE short term. Right now it's under community education at GAV, but that's what they usually start before they go to credit. And I can see us not only going through this part, but pre-internship and internship, and there are plenty of farms and other places in the one's called Christopher, I think, that need welders. So this could be a real nice program all the way through. Now, goals looking ahead. We have to establish a CTE advisory committee. Right now, I just have a few names of people that have helped out in terms of our major programs like agriculture and whatnot. We need to get more of them. It's harder here than it is, say, up in San Jose and whatnot. So that has to be, because they have to vet this plan. They have to vet the program in order to you to see the plan, for you to vote on the plan, and for us to move forward. So you need to approve that plan once it gets to you. Establish 2, this is just my goal again, establish 2 CTE or academic post-secondary dual enrollment projects. I told you about the welding. but there are others that may be even actually closer in terms of digital design and photography and stuff like that. And develop additional funding. I don't know. I just know that has to be. Also establish career tech student organizations for all pathways. We're supposed to do that. Determine industry certified pathway completion assessments. We only have a few. And obviously the strength of this program can and should be because we initiate the community, business, industry, and labor relationships. And that's one of my major goals for this year. The pathways and academies inside the plan, this is just a sample again, showing the industries, showing the pathways, the introductory course, the concentration course, capstone. If it is an academy, where else does it blossom and bloom out? Now, funding. This is taken from having enough matching funds for a CTEIG. And as you can see, at the top row, as ROP funds have dwindled over the last 3 years, LCFF or LCAP money has risen to try to meet that. Ag Incentive Grant, luckily enough, has been there for a long time, and keep your fingers crossed it'll be there for a lot longer. Perkins Grant, it's been, what, 15 years since a new Perkins Grant has been approved at the federal level. How much would it be? What would it be? Will it even exist? And it fluctuates all the time. You can see just in the last 3 years from 85 to 63. And no, I don't know what the formula is. It's somewhere in Washington. So, but it does fluctuate depending on the state and the federal government. And then we have the CTEIG. We're in the last year of the CTEIG. And I see nothing that says they're going to move it forward. So the challenges, Perkins, reduction maybe, CTEIG last year, ROP last year. Is there enough LCAP that we can hopefully qualify to be able to utilize? I'm trying to be inventive with the collaboration between agencies to come up with something that will benefit everyone. Is there any other one-time money that the state likes to find once in a while? And of course, the college and career preparedness, I mentioned this earlier. We have to develop the course, the pathway, this post-secondary pathway, and some dual enrollments. Because it's not just the 0.5 credits to graduate from our high schools to get our diploma. It's that 20 to 30 CTE credits for a lot of our students to be able to be the prepared, at least as much as this status says, for their future. Thank you. So any questions?
Okay, so this is also a discussion item, just informational questions, comments?
I'm just wondering, what do student organizations look like for these?
Let me give you a real good example. FFA, agriculture. I mean, they're one and the same. And the other requirement of the student organization, it has to be associated with a state and or national program. It's not a club.
Okay, that's what I was
But it can be like a club as long as it does have those other issues. It has to have a very strong leadership component. And FFA does. They're marvelous with that. It has to be connected, like I said, with the state. So a drama club, not to pick up drama, but the drama club isn't necessarily it. But being a part of the thespians, you know, international and national and whatever, that would be. So that's what we have to look at. And there's about 7 different programs nationwide and statewide that you can connect to even if you're sort of on the edges. There's Skill USA. Skill USA has a lot of different organizations, or I mean, excuse me, industries that it covers. But if you're really tuned in to say just automotive or something like that, there's probably something through there that you could get a hold of. But that has to be explored and that has to be developed. I know a lot of teachers are a little shy about clubs or things like that. It has to be an organization. It has to really have some work. It can be a fundraising mechanism.
I've seen the commitment in the FFA individuals who spearhead that group for students. That's a huge commitment for
Yeah,
teachers, I would assume.
it is. But it is also needs to be a part of the process, and it's that leadership part that is so important. And now they call them CTSOs. I'm not good at acronyms. It's a Career Technical Student Organization.
Trustee Pace?
This is very interesting, and we've been lucky here in Gilroy that we have a lot of options with CTE, but I like the idea of channeling them to a productive end, right, to a certificate or something.
Yes, it needs to be.
So I know Gav has a biotechnology certificate of achievement that seems like we've got to be really close with our Biomed Academy to being able to bring that together.
Yes, and they have now phlebotomy that people can, because they may go through our academy and not necessarily want to eventually become a research scientist.
Right.
But there are other applications. Nursing, of course, is a big part of Gavilan, and like I said, a phlebotomy course, or certificated program, excuse me, that will get you a job pretty much guaranteed almost right now.
Well, it makes sense to me, this word pathway, and that's why you need that link with something bigger than we are. You can't just have a drama club.
Yeah.
In other words, if you know the whole structure of FFA, I mean, those kids get to the national convention and there's 33,000 students in FFA uniforms, and it's kind of like, oh, it's not just Gilroy and Morgan Hill, right?
Yeah.
And that whole leadership, I mean, we're trying to get kids on a pathway that hopefully will lead to a career for them in the future if that's what they choose.
And that's what
So-
all this movement is for.
Right.
I mean, it's not wrong to say we want everybody to go to a four-year institution and college.
Yeah.
But we've been doing that and saying that for a long time.
Yeah.
And how many students just sort of went to the wayside because they didn't quite fit anywhere else. And hopefully this new arrangement, though it's going to put a lot of strain on us as a district and have to shift gears and figure that out, we'll be able to scoop up some more students and get them in a good place.
Well, they're not all going to go to a four-year college, sorry. It's just not going to happen. That's not our world.
We want to create options.
Exactly, right, viable options, but thank you for bringing all this, but I think it's very, for me personally, confusing. It's like there's a whole lot of information all at once.
Well, that's why I didn't talk about it last year for me. That was.
And you've spent a lot more time with this than we have, but what's the next step? Where do we go from here?
Well, I think you've outlined a lot of what we need to do in your presentation. First, we have a funding issue.
Yes.
We do need to form the advisory committee if we want to apply for any funds, so, and that, requires a specific membership. We used to have a pretty active CT advisory committee way back when. And then we have to work on the pathways. I mean, I think you've outlined a lot of the things that it needs to be a coordinated effort with Gavilan. I know we've started doing that a little, but we need to do more, so I think.
And they're eager. They're in that
Yeah.
place to do that.
I think Greg's outlined a lot of the areas that we need to work on. And now we have a dedicated person to take it on. Before we were really struggling because no one has the time to really focus on this. And now we're almost being forced to do it because of the indicators that are going to be used to measure our high school kids' performance includes a strong CTE component now. So the state's requiring us to go in this direction. I don't know if that answers your question, Pat, but we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, this is presenting, okay. There's a whole bunch of next
Yeah.
steps right in here.
I went out and dug up a lot of stuff. So now we have to figure out where it goes.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Russell.
So, apparently staff has been talking to staff at Gavlin, and, but we haven't been at the board level having those conversations, or at the at administrative level. I'm talking about Debbie, or talking to the staff over there. We used to have joint meetings with Gav, and we haven't scheduled one, I don't think.
Yeah.
And maybe this might be an opportune time to, talk about this project, that you're saying that it's part of what we are expected to do. And I don't know what the investment is for, in other words, having a regional approach, much like, we talk about what we're doing with the youth task force, in other words, but down here, I just had an interesting experience just a couple weeks ago. I met a gentleman who was a welder, actually, he was a steel worker, and he had been working 4 years at Apple Computer, building that thing, and he's making big income. And it turns out he went to school to South Valley, never went to the high school. And one of his friends told him about a program up in the Bay Area, and he applied, and he went through the program, and he immediately, got apprenticed and got into the program. And he basically is telling me they're bringing in people from overseas because they cannot get the people trained. And they just opened a program, I think, at San Jose.
Maybe through Metro, they just
in
started
San
a
Jose,
program
they
there,
just
yeah.
started the
The
program.
probably the apprenticeship program, I just read about that.
Because he's telling me that not only do they have what they've been doing with Apple and all that, but he says, and they have Facebook, where, they've been commuting up to all those areas, and they're gonna do the Google campuses and all that, and they just can't find the people, but, to train and to apply, that are qualified to participate in these programs. So to me, it's like, that was just one little thing, but it's just saying, how many more students are we missing, are missing this type of opportunities that are out there? This is just one trade. How many more are out there? So I think it's time for us to start, talking to our our partners there at Gavlin, and get behind the program and see what we need to do to get this done.
Well, it's
Thank you.
interesting, Greg, because every year when we go to the CSBA convention, there are always booths for the trades.
Mm-hmm.
They are there in big numbers. Very interesting to talk to, and some kids would be very interested in going into those
Yes,
fields.
yeah.
They just need the pathway to get there.
I mean, the welding is such a big part of it. I forget her name. She's an assistant dean, or assistant superintendent, excuse me, of at Gavlin, or what they call presidents there. Anyway, she's from down south, and the program she was with down there, they had like 3 classes, but they could never fill the 3rd class because everybody had a job before they got to it. So, I mean, that says something.
A job, what an idea.
Just one last thing. I know we kind of getting our program just up and going with Gavlin at Christopher High School. And I guess, are we adequately getting the funds that they need to implement the program?
Well, it depends on I think the 3 of us together is good, and it's going to get us where we need to go. I don't know how many other 3s there are to do that. And Adult Ed, in their need, they have the funds, and as you all know, because we didn't really participate in Adult Ed one year, it started to carry over, and we actually have to spend it. Well, I'd rather invest it in the schools that we have and whatnot, and maybe there's other arrangements we can work on. But when it comes to the day-by-day amount of money that's necessary for these programs, no, it's not adequate, because, I mean, look at the future. It ends and, or barely trails out there. And so here we're losing a lot of the funding. At the same time, we have to really grow in some areas. So it's going to be hard to meet that goal without the funding that's necessary to make these the kind of programs where students will learn what they need to learn.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you very much for.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, 8D, certify the 2016-17 unaudited actuals and approval of the 2017-18 revised budget. Alvaro Mesa, the Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, and Kimberly Mason, Director of Fiscal Services, will introduce this item.
Good evening, Board and community members. So tonight, we are going to go over our 16-17 unaudited actuals and our 2017-18 revised budget. And we'll be asking the Board action to certify the 16-17 unaudited actuals and also approval of the 17-18 revised budget. We'll also go over multi-year and next steps. So the first main slide here is the 16-17 actuals of the total general fund revenues of unrestricted and restricted. And you'll see the different percentages there. State aid and the Prop 30 and the property taxes, those are the three main components that make up our LCFF funding. And then we also have a little over 6.5 million of federal revenue, and we have other state revenue around 12.2 million. And we have local revenue, which is a lot of our donations and different type of grants, totaling a little over 2.8 million. And the next slide is the 16-17 total unrestricted and restricted general fund expenditures. And you'll see the different percentages there that make up the over 120,857,000. And the majority of that is in, of course, all of our salaries and compensation. The next slide here is going over the different variances. So we always, we project every year, and so the estimated actuals and then our actuals, what we actually close the books with, and the actual numbers at the end of the year, and that's what matters most. And you'll see the variance there. And so revenue, we had a little bit of a variance over 2.3 million, and some of that was due to prior year liabilities that were actually cleared, and we also got over 400,000 more of supplemental taxes. The expenditures there, we budgeted for all of the revenue, and we did have a difference of 7.4 because we didn't spend all of the money that we thought we would spend. A lot of that is due to jobs not starting until July 1st, and so you can't, the POs and everything have to start July 1st. You can't set aside anything unless you have decided to do that job at that point in time and actually started at that point in time. So you go down to the contributions, and there is a difference of 416,839 there, and that's due to contract levels. And then at the ending fund balance, we've actually got a positive of 9.37 million there, and a lot of that is due to the one-time sources that we are carrying over into 17-18 because it was money that was set aside. A lot of that money is actually already spent. If you look down there, it's actually carryover funds or set-aside funds that total a little over 5.9 million. And the next slide actually details that out for you. And for example, the approved text adoption money, that is actually already spent. Even the carryover money that we are, that is coming over there. We have a little bit of a balance of the 950,000 that we set aside for equipment replacement. The one-time carryover funds there from 15-16, that's actually already spent in 17-18. A lot of this has either spent already or it's set aside or is planned. The deferred maintenance is the roof project. So a lot of these monies, even though it was there and it carried over and it showed a larger balance, they're spent in 17, 18. Or committed. And then Alvaro will go over the multi-year projection.
Thank you, Kimberly. So before I start with the multi-year projection, there's just a couple of slides that basically tell us where we've been and hopefully where we're going, given the current information that we know from the Department of Finance. So this graph you know well, so I won't spend a whole lot of time on it. But on the left side, you'll see the total LCFF, local control funding formula entitlement per student. That's our basic ADA per student. And so you can see the implementation of the LCFF, local control funding formula, came into play first in 2013-14. And we're about 6,500 student, and that's an average. The grade level span, obviously the higher 9 to 12 grade levels get higher funded than the elementary grade level span. But it's just an average. And we're here at about 1,047 per student. Well, the steep climb up to this point has passed, because the state essentially is done paying us back for all those cuts in the past, and I've touched upon that in the past. And this one just graphs the delta, the growth, the change, if you will, between the year to year. And I think it's important to look at it in this fashion because you can basically see a flat line essentially hovering around this way. I'm not excited about this 2021 projection here because it means absolutely nothing. So it's just basically saying for the next couple of years, we're going to get around 200 and change per student. That's basically the cost of living adjustment. So we're done with these big 780 per student number. This $1 million, 1,020 per student. That was the year that we got over 10 million that year. And so this year we're sitting at 214 after the 512 change per student. This is just to illustrate that the stress the state has to meet its obligation. Prop 30 yielded 14 million to us. These are not state numbers, these are Gilroy Unified numbers. Multiply that, that's 1,000 districts. It's a lot of money, billions of dollars to the state. So when Prop 30 expires, the thought is, okay, well, Prop 55 will come in. Yes and no. Prop 30 was state income and sales tax. Prop 55 is only income tax base. So it's expected to generate 7 billion to 8 billion statewide. They're not gonna get the amount of help that they got from those voter initiatives, essentially lowering that state obligation, right? Because taxpayers were funding it separately. So I'm just gonna highlight the key changes for the revised budget. So that's the 17-18 revised budget. Of course, the carryover is in and is budgeted. We only budget carryover once we close our books. That's our hard policy. And then we're able now to budget after the state has enacted a budget, of course, to budget that one-time $1.6 million in this budget. 100% of that is already in there. 59% is our free and reduced target. We don't know that until first Wednesday in October. And then a month after that, when Kermit works his magic with the numbers, he gives me a certified number, and then that number is basically solidified in stone. Yeah, work your magic. But for the subsequent years, because of all the demographic changes, the housing, all this that we're seeing early, and has been the trend, we're at this point still forecasting to be that 57%, so a drop in our free and reduced population. And then we're back to the budgeting 50% in the subsequent year, because since our ending balance was a little bit higher, take away those one-time revenues, I'm able to then bring this back. Because if you remember our adopted budget, we went as high as 80% in there and 75% in there, and that's uncertainty. I mean, we didn't get everything that the state had in place in the forecast for this year. Remember, our 2.3 at one point was forecasted to be well over 3 million. And so 1 point mid-year last year, the state said, right before I think it was the governor's budget release, said, oops, you're not getting 3, you're getting a whole lot less than that. And on the forecast, we lost about $2 million that would be otherwise ongoing. So this has proven to be a good safety measure for us to have an assumption, conservative revenue assumption in the subsequent years, and we're back to those levels of 50% because it's proven to be a good strategy for us. And these are just the same. It's just a reminder that nothing is extra in terms of dealing with these pension costs. So it's coming right out of that cost of living adjustment that we're going to get. So essentially $1.2 million in COLA, typically that's what we're going to get in the future. And then it goes out the window with just the pension cost. This is just a total graph, not the total contribution, but just the total expenditures of special ed. And you can see they've become significant. In 2011, just under 12 million. These are federal, state, and local special ed sources. We're over up to 22 million now. Highlight of expenditure assumptions. I'll just basically highlight the key. Contribution to the general fund in this revised budget has increased by $833,000 for special ed encroachment. When we close the books, it's just Fund 12 that happened last year. We contributed about $179,000 to preschool, state preschool fund. They just don't generate the revenue to even fund the salaries. So I think the base revenue out of the state share of that fund was $700,000, just rounding numbers, and the cost to fund preschool program and staff it tightly and only have 2 available slots was $900,000. So we have a $200,000 shortfall, operational shortfall in that fund. We've looked at we've met multiple times with Kathy Taylor. It's not a staffing issue. It's not a capacity issue. It's just plain cost. Salary and benefits are just higher than what we generate in terms of revenue for that fund. So we're looking at that and we're saying, look, that happened to us last year, it happened to us this year. I'm going to put it in there until something structurally changes so that we're not surprised with this again. Multi-year projection, these is my favorite slide, and according to the, my favorite 2 slides because another one comes out. But here's the $1.6 million I was not able to budget in the adopted budget because, again, that was iffy at that point. Remember, the governor said he may allocate it here in May. That doesn't mean he will. So at that point, there was a lot of uncertainty around that, but by the time the enacted budget came in, people talked some sense into him, and he put it in the budget, and it is being allocated as in the past. So that's why that $1.6 million is able to be budgeted there. Remember, the contribution has increased by $833,000. I didn't pick that number. That number is based on actual expenses for last year and what the actual contracts are looking in at this point in time. And it'll again change with any, say, settlements that we approve. So it'll always change and be updated as the multi-year forecast is a fluid document. It will change. So our projected ending balance, these are all projections. What Kimberly showed you are the actual numbers for last year. So obviously the budget is here. It includes all that almost $6 million of the one-time money. That's causing this $7 million number deficit spending to be abnormally high because we have all those one-time revenues that we're spending in this year. I want to spend a little bit of time on this column because that has a negative $3.8 million. Well, that matches to the beginning balance that we're bringing in. So a lot of the grants that we deal with have essentially forcing us to recognize revenue when we receive it rather than we spend it. So you see a beginning balance in there matching up to the deficit spending. And you'll see that a little bit better with this arrow. So we have a net decrease, which means deficit spending here, but it's offset by the beginning balance that we carried over from the prior year. So that structurally shouldn't bother you, shouldn't worry you, because these are grants that by design we have to book the revenue when we receive it. If we spend it 2 years out, you'll see that deficit spending being carried 2 years out. The next subsequent years, as I mentioned, we're only budgeting 50% of that total revenue. So for instance, 100% level in 18-19 is $3 million and 2.2 in here. We're not budgeting 100%. We're back to the conservative 50% of the new gap measures. And then here's our reserves. So another point to make is we have to start worrying about of furniture and equipment for the new school. The last thing we want to do is wait till, let's say, June to start ordering furniture and equipment for August. It'll never come. It'll take months to come. So we should be ordering furniture if we want to open the new school in 2020. I will order it right here, just to be safe, because they have substantial delays. Probably 8 months in advance for an entire school would not be out of the good thing to do. So we want to order furniture early, and I'm just setting that aside because of the bid for the new school has to come in first, and we know we have what we have allocated for that out of Measure E, and that's going to be the building, the envelope, the site, and now we got to worry about furnishing and equipment and all that. So we think that that's a good number to set aside for that purpose. As you can see, the multi-year projection does meet your minimum reserve of 7% in the out year, and it still remains to the conservative nature of budgeting only 50%, because again, there's nothing in statute that says the governor has to do this. He doesn't have to fund the COLA. The COLA could be zero like last year, and the gap funding is totally upon all and any available revenues is what's in the text. These are just the closing numbers, and actually I think your packet got printed oddly in the last two rows there, insurance fund and foundation fund, or tax override. I think it's the same kind of number. So these are the corrected year-end numbers for those funds. I highlighted Fund 12 there, just to make sure that you're aware that that $203,000 was a contribution from the general fund to preschool fund. That's why that number is there in my multi-year projection. Continued to be until something changes operationally. It's just going to be that way, because even though the state changes the reimbursement rate, it doesn't change by a whole lot to absorb that change. Every other fund had a positive balance, and of course the building fund, that's huge, but that's obviously it's not all Measure E for the new school. It's Measure P, a little bit of lingering with Measure P as well, but most of it is Measure E, of course. The building fund, 2-1 in general is bonds, but internally we have a separate fund for P and E. You're just being, a summary level report here so that you can see the balances. So the next steps is, of course, December, we'll bring the first interim financial report, and then the audit is supposed to take place sometime in October from James Marta. And then we expect that he'll be presenting an audit report of our financial unaudited actuals here to you either in December or in January. And we'll, of course, be revising the multi-year forecast as needed. And then here tonight for action is to certify both the 2016-17 unaudited actuals as well as the revised budget. And of course, we're happy to take questions.
Questions, comments, board members? I have a question about state preschool. I don't get it. So every year, we're in the hole.
For the last year was 179,000 contribution,
this year it's 200.
and this is 200,000. So
Right.
when you look at the comparables, it's just a high cost program for us to operate it here, and we're not being reimbursed to even cover the base salary to operate the program. And again, it's not a staffing or a efficiency issue. It's tightly staffed. We had a grand total of 2 slots open. So it was tightly operated, efficiently run, but it's just the cost of salary and benefits for that fund are higher than what we get reimbursed from the state for. And at one point, we had said, okay, well, let's pursue grants. Let's try to supplement it. And then what the state then does is say, oh, okay, fantastic, Gilroy, you got a $50,000 grant minus $50,000 from the state allocation. Right. And then you're left in the same boat. So it's like, you gotta be kidding me. And so we keep trying.
So you said until something changes. What do you think is going to change?
Operationally, something has to change on the operational costs that we can control, because we can't control the reimbursement rate. So we have to look at the operational expenses that we have and what drives those to make sure that we can engage in order to make those changes.
So this must be happening all over the state. It must be happening in all
Y-
kinds
y-
of districts.
You know, that's a conversation that, yes, Kathy and Kathleen Bierman and I had with Kimberly as well. Most districts do have a contribution to state preschool. Some even have a contribution to food service. It just depends. But for here, I see clearly the reimbursement rate won't cover. And with pensions going up, it's just, it won't happen. So that's why for me, I thought, okay, well, you fooled me once. This is going to be in the multi-year projection now. So that at least for the time being, until something changes, it's planned in the multi-year forecast.
Okay. Trustee Pacetto.
You mentioned a change in operational costs, which is something that we can control. Can you give me an idea of,
It's all up to negotiations and, of course, salary driven.
so personnel,
Personnel,
basically?
right. The base salaries, and it's just things that you have to negotiate.
Mhm.
Because it's all there. It's so lean that it just has to be something we work through the table and negotiate.
Other questions, comments?
Just a comment, well, the other option, obviously, if you can't eliminate the encroachment on the general fund, is to terminate the program. No one wants to do that, but we can't do everything. Not with continuing encroachment on the general fund.
Okay,
Further questions?
so
I move approval.
it is an action item. Mhm.
Yes.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded to certify the 2016-17 unaudited actuals and approve the 2017-18 revised budget. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere because you got.
And then Kimberly will do the monthly district cash flow update as requested by the board. Thank you.
Okay, so as I had mentioned before, or I think a couple board meetings ago, that at every interim, the monthly cash flow is also revised. So the totals in there reflect our revised adopted. And we're gonna go ahead and just go over August is what we're going through right now. And the beginning cash balance, I'll go back a little bit. So the beginning cash balance, so the end of June, we ended with that 24,410. So that's our July beginning balance, and the expenses and everything go through, and then, so we carried over 29.765 for August. And the cash that came in for that month is a little over 3.7 million. And our expenditures for that month is a little over 9.8. And part of that, or the majority of that, is your payroll, which is, or your total compensation, which is a little over 6.9, which is 70% of those expenditures. So the ending cash balance for that month would be 21,760, and without our trans, which is a little over 6.7 million we received this year, it would have been 14.9 million. Okay. And as I said, so this, all of these expenditures and everything are projected out with the amounts that are now in our revised budget. And the next slide is just another way of looking at those totals after cash, or after payroll has already hit the books. So, any questions?
This is an information item. Questions, comments? Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you.
So we have a resolution. Number 1718-08, adopting the GAN limit and approving GAN limit recalculations for 16-17 and calculations for 17-18.
Thank you, Madam President. Item F, the resolution for the GAN limit, goes back to 1979 when Prop 4 was passed. And it's essentially just to have a check on the government, how government is growing relative to the population essentially. And it's adjusted annually for the CPI index, as well as, of course, population changes in California. What we need to know is to basically have two numbers be known and disclosed to the public. Our appropriation actual for last fiscal year, so this is actual 16-17, was $74,779,011.65, and I have to read that. And then in 17-18, the estimated appropriation limit is $78,383,525.27. This is the estimate for the current fiscal year, at which point when we close this current fiscal year, I'll come back just like I'm doing for 16-17 and give you the actual appropriation. There is no fiscal impact, but we didn't hit that limit. We're never going to hit that limit, but it does require a resolution annually for you to adopt and consider.
Questions? Okay, this is a roll call vote.
Move for approval. Second.
Been moved and seconded.
Heather Bass.
Yes.
B.C. Doyle.
Yes.
Mark Good.
Yes.
Pat Midgard.
Yes.
James Pace.
Yes.
Linda Pacino.
Yes.
Jaime Rosso.
Yes.
Thank you.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we're moving into action information items regarding facilities and maintenance and operations. And Julie Avnet, she's a district consultant with Spectrum Management Solutions, will give us an update on how we're spending the money, what's happening with our facilities.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to be running through this. We've had several changes, mostly, I think, all to the good so far as our ending year of 16-17. So I'll just start right in. The district earned a little over $55,000 in interest on Measure P funds. We had originally projected for the year $41,000. That was a nice change. We had originally projected 2.02 million in developer fees, and you collected 2.25. So that was a nice number. You also had picked up a balance of a refunding transaction that ended up with an additional $305,000 in your Measure P fund. Alvaro can explain that a little better. But it has to do with the whole transaction when you refinance some of those bonds. And when all the dust settled, you had another $305,000 and change that came out of that transaction.
It was sitting in an escrow account. So similarly to when you have an escrow in your mortgage, say, and you refinance, you pay taxes and you put this basic account away and you pay into it monthly. So when you refinance, depending how you structure, then you get a check 2 months after the transaction happens from the bank that you used to pay and that used to have this escrow account for you. So this was sitting in a trust, and so we've got that refund back into the fund.
That's always nice.
You earned on your site sale proceeds, you earned almost $96,000. We had budgeted $65,000. And on your interest earned on your Measure E funds for the year, we had budgeted $114,000, and you earned $256,000 and change. So it's a nice.
We like to have you come, Julie.
I like giving these numbers, although I had nothing to do with them. And then finally on this sheet, this $725,000, I've been talking about it off and on for years. It is an unfunded approval for state matching funds for Rucker modernization that we did out there. We'd had it projected along with all the others out in 2019. On the September 6th SAB meeting, they processed and approved, among many other districts, approved this to actually have the funds released to the district. So that means within the next 6 to 8 weeks, that $725,000 will hit your books. And then what we'll need to do, because it's reimbursement, because the projects have been already done, we'll just need to turn around and send an expenditure report to the state showing them what the project was. And then that money is available to the district to apply to other facilities projects. So that was kind of good news.
No kidding.
And then really on the expenditures side for fiscal year 2017, other than the energy efficiency projects, Prop 39, I was not able, by the time we needed to have these slides done, get the exact number that you'd spent past year. We had budgeted 75,000. As I recall, the number I was given was somewhere around 50 or 55,000. So then the 2018 figure will be adjusted for that balance because we know what you got and how much you have to spend and what your projects are budgeted. So your projected ending balance in 2019 is now a little over 84 million based on what our budgets that we have and the distribution of those over the years. Any questions so far? Okay.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to make a request. I have 3 architects that are in the room that have been waiting patiently for the RFP update, which is following this, and that's going to make them even later. Would it be okay if we move to 9D so we can have it's a very brief discussion on the RFP. Several of them are going all the way up to Oakland, and it's getting rather late, if that would
Sure.
please the board.
That's fine.
Okay. So I'd like to have Leo come up, please. So as you know, last board meeting, we approved the bridging document. And the bridging document, as part of the bridging document, there is a request for proposal that's associated with that. Then there will be one more document, which will be the contract itself. All these have to be approved by the board. What we're bringing is the draft request for proposal. We've gone through it, and we've sent it up to legal counsel. Legal counsel sent it back. There's one sheet that you have, I think that, no, I think they already have this one. It's the sheet that has some corrections on it. I think there's about 6 sheets. You should have that one. If you look through there, you'll notice there are just typos. All of them are typos except for one item, and that was something that was a legal issue that we had to put back in. We took it out and had to put it back in, and that was a life cycle cost over 15 or more years. That's on page 12 of 25 under evaluation factors, so that's part of our evaluation factor. That legally has to be in there.
Jim, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
We're being handed a new stack of documents.
Yes.
This is RFP, but at the days was an identical document and then a 4-page, looked like correction document.
Four-page correction document, that is
So the new
correct.
document will be handed, these two mixed together?
Yes, the one you're being handed right now has all of the corrections that are on this document. Yeah, all of those corrections are incorporated in the new one that you have right now. Correct.
So just for your purposes, I'm just pointing out what the changes were to make them easy. That's why we printed out the short version. But what you want to use is just the RFP, the final version, the RFP draft. All those have been included, and that's been vetted out. So basically, we have our draft version of the RFP. We're going to be taking the final version of the RFP for the design build services on October 5th, and that'll be a vote. And we'll take the first draft of the contract on October 5th and then the second draft thereafter, because the contract really doesn't get let until sometime in, I believe, December, correct? So we have plenty of time to review that. I don't want to sit here and keep pushing these things on you and not give you a chance to review. So we won't be bringing this one back until October 5th. So clearly, I don't know if you've had a chance to read it, review it. If you have not, simply review it. If you find anything that you want to change, if you have anything you want to change tonight, certainly let me know. Or you can go ahead and review it, email the questions to Alvaro, he'll forward them to me, and then we'll incorporate those changes if they are in fact.
Who drafted the RFP?
We did it collectively. Our office did the final draft of it, but we did it with Alvaro and Jim. And then, as he said, it was then vetted by the attorney who made his comments on it afterwards.
Which attorney?
That was Allerkill.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, Allerkill said this is one of the better RFPs he's ever seen. So I was very, very happy with that. The biggest part of that was getting the schedule, because our schedule is getting tight. But yes, he's vetted through it, and he's in agreement with it. So basically, we'll bring this back on the 5th for a vote, and then we'll start the contract, and we'll vote that. We'll bring that forward for a draft, a vote, and then we'll be completed with our part of the bridging document, contract, and RFP.
Jim, you were referring us to page 12 of
Yeah.
25. Could you finish that thought? Because I think we were still shuffling papers.
Yeah, what Jim was referring to is, in the draft that you have that's marked up, you see where the attorney wrote in about life cycle costs over 15 years, evidently, which none of us were actually aware of, unfortunately. That is a legal requirement of the new design build regulations that the state has. So we included that in the final version that you have. It's included as factor number 9,
Right.
the life cycle costs, and with a number of points associated with it. So that's something that the design build team is going to have to include in their RFP proposal.
Thank you.
So this actually does give the RFP, and it does give the grading criteria. There's quite a bit to this, so. Are there any questions on the RFP itself at this time? And once again, feel free to vet it out, and if you find anything that you have questions on, please send them to Alvaro. He'll forward them to me, and we'll have a discussion and send you an answer.
Okay, great. Any questions at this time? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for allowing us to go a little bit early and allow our architects to go home. They look like they're tired.
It's so close to the end.
They were all waiting for this piece, of course. Okay. Okay, so our first item is the Christopher High School Science and Art Labs. Project start date is September 12th. Actually, obviously, the start date can't be September 12th because we're asking for the award of bid and contract tonight. So the start date will be the 22nd, I'm sorry. So we're asking for the award of bid and contract to Premier Builders for 228-317-55, and that is almost, I think it's about $25,000 to $30,000 under the engineer's estimate, so we did get a very good bid. Typically, when we start getting into the fall, we start getting better bids because people are looking for work during the fall once their summer work is completed. So that is, in our estimation, that is a very good bid. Christopher High School Solar Project, just an update. Project completion date is September 22nd, which is tomorrow. They should be done and out. We connected the electrical to both switch panels, and they're all fired up. They're not going to actually commission them and put them online until Gilroy High School is commissioned and put online. They want to do them at the same time. I'm not sure why, but that's the way they want to do the business.
We can have some ceremony, we get to flip some giant switch
Yes, as a matter of fact, Alvaro and myself and Borrego Solar did have that discussion, and Borrego Solar will be working with Laura, our PIO, on getting that put together in the next, I think we have about a month before the first one happens. They both get online. So the answer is yes, we're working on that.
really big switches.
Yeah, knife, some giant samurai sword knife switch.
Exactly.
There we go. And here's a picture of the Christopher High School Solar Project, and you can see that it's lit up underneath. So these are really really good-looking systems. What you see at the bottom there is just a protective cover until they're done moving around with their vehicles. They don't want to get dirt or vehicle black on the pavement. Those come off, and when they're off, boy, they sure are a good-looking unit. You know, I chose to paint them black. That was to make things disappear, and it certainly did. We're also having the conduits that go up to the boxes painted black, and that'll make them disappear so the kids don't vandalize them or try to do anything with them.
Do they plan on having seniors paint that area, and do you know when they're
Yes,
coming
they
in?
do. I don't know when. They said they were gonna do it on a weekend. I'm guessing if we're done tomorrow, it's either gonna be this weekend or the following weekend, but it's obviously up to the Christopher High School crew. Maybe Dr. Flores knows better.
Yeah. Is there coordination? Do they know when they get the parking lot so that they can do
Yes,
that?
yes, I just talked to Greg tonight, yeah. Gilroy Early College Academy, we have a contract with Market Share Incorporated for the purchase and installation of a school sign for $4,641.55. School does not have a sign currently. This is also going to have graffiti proofing on it, which is something that the Gavilan College recommended, and we had a discussion and thought that was a really good idea. And the school is on board with this. They're well aware of it, and I believe they voted yes, but it's already a done deal, so.
Do we have a mock-up of the sign to look at?
Why, yes, we do.
Last time.
And there it is. Sorry, I could have skipped forward to that.
Great.
Yeah, that's what the sign looks like. And that's going where? That's going kind of in front of the admin office, right where where you pull into park. It kind of sits right there where it's very obvious to everybody that's coming in. It's the front of the school, and it's going to be a really good-looking sign for the school. I know they've wanted one for quite some time. There was a lot of back and forth going on what the design should look like, the names and everything else. Jenny Derry worked very closely with Sonia and Flores and came up with the sign, and I think it's going to be a really good addition to the campus.
Are we sure the T and J shouldn't have the little periods after them? I'm just asking, because if the family wanted it the other way, this could be embarrassing if it wasn't done right.
Most documents, there are periods.
We will check. This is the final that they gave us. We will check, yes. Before we tell them to start building the sign, we'll check that, yes. I wasn't aware of that. Gilroy High School Solar Project, that project completion date is October 13th. The electrical work is underway. That's all that's really left. They're working on the electrical. We'll be opening up sections of that as we go. Right now, we have most of it closed off, but whenever the high school has requested extra parking, we open the gates up and they go inside and park. That's happened about 3 times so far, so that seems to be working out really well. About another 2-3 weeks and we should be done and out of there as well, so. Here's a picture of that one. It's a lot bigger of an area, and once again, the black paint, when you walk underneath of those things, it sure does make them disappear, so. The Gilroy High School Building G acoustic project, we have a ratification of contract with Kent Construction for $9,500. What that had to do with was as you recall, I brought to the board a roll-up door, stainless steel. They had to do a lot of blocking, they had to do a lot of work around the outside, and then they had to do a lot of finish work in order for that door to be installed, so. So anyway, the door is in. I don't know if anybody's seen it or not, but there it is. It's actually a very good-looking door. It's stainless steel, and when the door is closed and the 2 side doors are closed, even without the glass, it eliminates the noise from from the inside there. So it seems to have worked really
When's the
well.
glass coming?
The glass is coming in towards the end of the month. Everything's going to be done before October 1st. Been working with Mike on that. He's working in there as we speak. He put the shelves up. He's going to be hanging the large clouds, and then finally putting the glass up. So, and the wall that's going across, I believe, is coming in next week. So we should have everything done by October 1st.
And when's that concert?
October 2nd. So we will be helping, we'll be helping Jonathan get his risers and letting him come in and do his preliminary stuff while we're doing some finish work, so. Gilroy High School parking lot project there. We also have a ratification of contract with EF&S Concrete for $21,713. This was all safety-related items. That's why it ended up being a ratification, because there was a lot of, when you finish a parking lot, you realize that some things are missing. Lanes that cross, that you have to divide. So we have a lot of delineators that were put in. We found that there was a section of sidewalk that needed to be put in. We realized that the dirt was going to continue on the sidewalk, so we had to put in a curb. We had to change the bus lane. The bus lane required a 5x8 concrete landing for the bus people, so we had to change that to the other side. A whole lot of different things. As a matter of fact, Alvaro, Dr. Flores, myself, and Mike Rice were out today looking at the area, and we found a couple more things that we found that we needed to make adjustments to. One of them had to do with the crossing, and so, as these things grow and people start using them, you find things that need to be done. So these are the small items that need to be done, but they are safety items. It was somewhat of an emergency, so we did have to bring that back as a ratification. I'm really, really, really trying not to do this. But when it comes to safety, we don't have a lot of choice on that. Gilroy High School, and we go right back into a ratification, but Gilroy High School Phase 1 Portable Building Relocation Project, that is a ratification of contract with Cleary Consultants Incorporated. In order for us to get to the Phase 2, the California Geological Survey had to sign off on our papers. Unfortunately, they weren't happy with the first round, so they sent it back. Then Cleary had to do a lot of work and a lot of calculations, sent it back. They still weren't happy, sent it back. They had to do a lot of calculations, sent it back. So it was just under $3,000 worth of work that they had to do. We did get our clearance, and we were able to get DSA, the Division of the State Architect, to sign off on our plans and specs, and those have been let. So we'll be bringing those to the board for the award of bid and contract, I think in October. And that's the end of the slideshow for me. Dan has some items that he needs to also discuss.
Good evening, Dr. Flores, President Midgard, School Board. I apologize, my items did not make it to the slideshow, but I just have 3 items for you tonight. The first is 9H. That's the approval of contract with Architectural Systems for the installation of new fencing at the former location of the Auto Shop spray booth. If you're familiar with where that Auto Shop spray booth was, the 2 exterior walls of that building help secure the rear area of the shop. Now that that's gone, we have temporary district fencing up there, but we need to come up with a permanent solution. So after talking to Dr. Sanchez and the Auto Shop teacher, they just want that fenced in. We did leave the existing slab there for the Auto Shop booth. Hopefully that can be used for something in the future. But this bid is just for slat fencing and some improvements on the gate to match what's existing. And that's $5,025 with Architectural Systems, who's one of our very good fence contractors, does the majority of our repair work. Second item, 9I, is approval of contract with MBS Engineering for the installation of seismic gas valves at the 5 remaining schools that we have not done. That's Antonio Del Bono, Los Animas, Solorzano, Brownell, and South Valley. I'm sure you're familiar with MBS. They've done a tremendous amount of work for us in gas repair, and they also did what you see. It's an old listing of Priority 1 and Priority 2 school sites where they went out and physically inspected all our sites, and we did do all Priority 1, and there's one discrepancy on there. It shows, I believe, Gilroy High School still is a Priority 2. Gilroy High was done. That was the first site we ever did. So school board did approve Gilroy High School being done first, and we thought that was a good testing for MBS to see what they provided for us, and it turns out they did provide a very good service for us, and they did do quite a bit of repiping at some of our urgent needs at a few of our schools recently, and they are probably one of the best contractors privately and in public works that I've ever worked with. So to do those 5 remaining schools, it's $44,500 out of my RRM budget. Last item is approval of contract with EnviroScience for the EPA required inspections of asbestos in our school sites. Excuse me, every school-owned building to be in compliance with EPA regulations has to be inspected and certified. A report has to be provided of any asbestos-containing materials and the condition of those materials. Currently, we are not in compliance with that. Has to be done every 3 years. Alvaro sent me to a workshop on her several months ago that our insurance group held, and it's pretty common. Most school districts are not in compliance of this, so they were encouraging us to get on board and get this done. EnviroScience is a very proven contractor for us. They are extremely familiar with our school sites. They've worked on every school site. So to expedite the process, we did get a bid from them to do this. I think it would be very cost efficient to go with them because they already have all our school site maps. They're very familiar with our schools. They've done, for most of the construction work in this district, they've already done the pre-testing and lead and asbestos. So that's $19,825, again, out of my RRM budget.
Dan, on that one, you said every school-owned building.
Every school-owned building.
Okay, these are not just schools.
No.
So we're doing all of our
We're
other
doing
facilities.
every building in the district that's district-owned.
Okay.
Okay, trustee Pisano has a question?
I don't even know how to ask this. So, does asbestos appear every 3 years? I mean, if we.
Oh, no, we just have to have a current report.
So we do this every 3 years?
Well, yes, to be in compliance, we are to do this every 3 years, and it might be just the same information generated again in a report, but it has to be done every 3 years. So even Christopher High School, one of our newer schools, it most likely has no asbestos in it. It could possibly. There's still asbestos in some building products manufactured today. But we'd still have to do Christopher High School.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good question. Does it appear every 3 years? I'm back.
Somebody's making.
Well, I'm appreciative that you bring this to our attention and that we're actually doing it as a district, right? Thank you.
Thank you.
So I will entertain a motion. We have one resolution in there, C, but a motion for C through J.
Move approval?
Second.
I have a motion and a second, and this will be a roll call vote, Gina. She put it in green so I wouldn't miss it. Thank you, Gina.
Heather Bass,
Yes.
B.C. Doyle,
Yes.
Mark Good,
Yes.
Pat Midgard,
Yes.
James Pace.
Yes.
Linda Pacino,
Yes.
Jaime Rosso.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we will move ahead to 10, which is board members' reports.
I went to some meetings and stuff.
Okay, thank you.
That's my favorite report.
Thank you. I think we all did, right? All right, seeing none.
Can leave.
Upcoming and new referral agenda items. We have anything here? And you might look at the agenda calendar to see what's coming up. And can we consider Mark's proposal at this time?
What proposals?
Well, that we start at 5.
Oh, I love that
On we have 3 dates coming up in which it says closed session to follow regular meeting, which is just daunting. So Mark's brilliant suggestion was, well, can we meet at 5? And would that work for everybody? That would be on the 5th of October, the 19th of October, and the 2nd of November. Would that work for everybody? Okay, good. We'll do.
Any problem?
I know.
It just means we're gonna start our closed session at 5 and then do the 3 presentations at 5:30. Yeah. That way we can do the 3 before the meeting.
I was just worried about a half an hour for closed.
No, it'd still be well, we did that the last 2 meetings. We'll make it work.
So, Jaime, it's on the 5th and 19th of October and the 2nd of November.
19th's going to be rough.
Debbie, are you saying, that's not what I understood. I thought closed session would be 5 to 6 and the presentations would still start at 6 o'clock.
There's 3 of them. There's
Need
3
more time.
presentations, so we'd need to start at 5:30.
We just have to keep those closed sessions as
got it.
small,
Yeah.
as
We'll
short as
just,
we can.
as much as possible,
Got it.
keep the closed sessions short.
So you don't have even a,
Right,
okay, got it.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
And then on the 16th, we go back to 5:30 and 6, because there's only 2.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at, but
Yep.
you're right.
is that clear to everybody? The closed session will be 5 to 5:30.
Yes.
So as an executive committee, we'll try to plan that, closed session isn't too long, move along. And then the reports, presentations will begin at 5:30. That's okay with
Yep.
principals? Okay, great. So, announcements, the next regular meeting of the Board of Education will be on Thursday, October 5th. A study session will be held at 5. Open session at 7.
No,
No,
no.
closed session at 5.
Closed
Yeah.
session at 5.
What did I say?
Study.
Oh, a closed session will be at 5, and then study session begins at 5:30, and then the meeting at 7?
7.
Okay, we'll have time to eat a chocolate chip cookie or something, right? Okay. The agenda will be available on the district's website by 5 p.m. on Friday, September 28th. And this meeting is adjourned.